Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christopher Ellison, and I'm the Director of Intelligence at Flashpoint. Flashpoint is a Europe-based intel company, but I'm based in Atlanta, and I was born in the Philippines. You can follow me on Twitter at Talks, and my email address is also talks at flashpoint-intel.com. So if you have questions later, you can send me an email. Alright, so today we're going to talk about the shift from opportunistic to targeted ransomware. So we have the introduction, opportunistic TTPs, targeted TTPs. I have an agenda here, but when I attend the talk, I actually don't read the agenda. So for some reason, they always require me to put an agenda here. Not ROOTCON, but other people that will review this presentation. So we can jump straight to my favorite part, which is about myself. So I've been talking in ROOTCON for more than I can count. And aside from this, one of the most exciting things I do in my job is that I negotiate with different threat actor groups, especially during times of extortion and ransomware incident for different companies and governments. Alright, so how many of you are familiar with ransomware as a service? Perfect. So if you attended my talk in previous years, it actually built on top of each other. So we have a ransomware as a service owner. Usually, they're the ones who created the ransomware. They're the ones who authored the encryption part, or probably they just use an open source encryption technology, but they hold the source code for the ransomware. And unfortunately for them, they can create ransomware, but then they don't have the ability to spread it. So think of it this way. You have a letter, and you want to send it to all your friends so they can read your letter, but you don't have the capability to send it, right? You need some sort of service. It could be a postal service, it could be FedEx, or it could be a UPS. So for threat actor groups that own ransomware as a service, usually they don't have that capability. So they try to recruit affiliates. So affiliates are other threat actor groups that have access to different infection vectors. So an infection vector could be an email spam. It could be a threat actor group that have different or stolen RDP credentials. Or they could be threat actor groups that have access to different vulnerabilities, even 0 days, that would enable them to get into a target company. So this is actually one of the postings in the underground, the deep dark web, of GadCrab trying to recruit affiliates in the deep dark web. So as you can see here, it's saying that the name of the ransomware is GadCrab, searching for high-skilled malware spreaders. Profits will be split 60% to 40%. So 60% goes to whoever owns an infection vector. And if it's very effective, it can go up to 70%. So if they earn $1 million, 700,000 goes to the affiliates or those that own the infection vectors. All right, once somebody says, you know what, I'm free, I can be an affiliate, I have access to RDP credentials. Of course, communication could happen directly between the RAS owner and the infection vector owner. And when that happens, that's when we see ransomware. So before, most of the things we see are opportunistic. So it's just like spray and pray. You try to spread it to as many targets as you can. Whoever gets infected, gets infected. And most of the things you see when you get infected. So how many of you have seen or experienced ransomware infection in your network? Of course, somebody will say you got infected, right? So it's exactly the question. So when you get infected by ransomware, so aside, the main difference of this with other malware is that ransomware will not try to hide itself. Unlike other malware classes where it will try to establish a foothold and try to hide itself, probably because it's a backdoor, it's an information stealer. But ransomware will announce itself. And the way it announces itself is that for every folder that's been encrypted, you will see a ransom note like this. So it would say here, all your files, documents, photos, databases have been encrypted. If you want to get back your access, you have to visit the store site and then pay us money. And of course, this is not enough because some people probably don't have any idea what's going on, or they just won't open any text file that's in their face or in the folders that are encrypted. So what web actors do is they also modify the desktop. So your desktop wallpaper would be something like this. So your files are under strong protection by our software. In order to store, you must buy it. And if you follow the ransom note and you install Tor on your Tor browser on your system, and go to the Tor link, this is what you usually see. So you have 6 days. It can be any days. It can be 10 days, it can be 3 days. Or if you don't pay during that time period, money will double. I mean, the cost of the decryptor tool will double. And if you would notice here, there's also a chat service. So if you have questions, if you need to ask them, like, how do I get Bitcoins? Or do I buy it? Because there's so many victims that we talked with earlier during the ransomware phase, that they don't have any idea what the Bitcoin is. Some of them don't have any ideas how to get it, where to buy it. That's why most of the ransom page that you will see from ransomware, there's a small tutorial there about Bitcoins. This is where you get it, this is where you buy it, this is how you pay the threat actor groups. So aside from the chat capability here, wherein you could send the messages, ask the questions, there's also a try before you buy. I showed that last year, wherein if you want to make sure that your files will be decrypted, you can send them 3 to 5 files to decrypt, and then they'll send you the decrypted version of those files. This is a verification that they can really decrypt your files. Because some of them are asking a lot, right? Like for this one, it's asking $3,000 per machine. Of course, at first we thought 3,000 was really, really high, but later you will see that 3,000 is really, really low. So for this one, this is what the victims see, right? Now, as a threat actor, what you see, or what the threat actor sees, something like this. This is their dashboard. So they have access to this, and they can actually see how many infections there are. For example, on this day, the third one, it's 22 infections. The fourth one, they have 49 infections. And this is during the early phase. After they spread ransomware, this could balloon to hundreds, to even hundreds of thousands of victims. So imagine, you're an affiliate. There's only 4 or 5 of you in your criminal group, and you have 100,000 infections. And those 100,000 of people will contact you via chat service. So 5 people answering 100,000 queries. That's a lot, right? It takes a lot of your time. And imagine if all of them try to submit 3 files for decryption. So it takes a lot of time on the threat actor groups, right? That's why in the underground, they also have ads for, if you want to work remote. They have ads for wanted tech support, earn dollars, must be a native English speaker or very well versed in the English language. So they try to hire people from around the world to answer chats. But of course, they can answer chats, but they don't have the ability to decrypt. The ability to decrypt still stays on the threat actor group. So most of the work is being done by the threat actors, right? So you're getting 3,000 per infection, and then it takes a lot of time to manage all of those customers. Just handling the chats, handling the decryption takes a lot of time. So what they did is they were targeted. So imagine you have 100,000 infections, paying you $3,000 in infections, so that's what? That's $3 million or 30 million. So my math must be off. But imagine you have one infection, a major corporation, a city government, a nation state that's been crippled by a ransomware. You can easily ask for millions of dollars to decrypt their system, right? So you manage one victim, or as they say, one customer, and you earn more money. And this is a Ryuk builder. So Ryuk is one of the most popular ransomware that's being used for targeted attacks. So if you're an affiliate, they will give you a builder where you can build your ransomware tailored to your target. So let's say they want to target company X. They would do an initial phase of reconnaissance against company X. And then based on the information that they have, they would build a ransomware specifically just for that company. So whatever ransomware you collect for that company, you'll never see that variant anymore in other companies. So it's going to be totally different. But of course, the functionalities, they're still the same. And same with opportunistic ransomware. They also have ransom notes. But the main difference of the ransom note here is that instead of telling the victim to visit a Tor site, they're actually telling the victims to contact them by email. And the main difference there of them contacting them by email is because the communication stays between the threat actor group and the victims. Only those who have access to the emails we have an idea of what's going on. Unlike in opportunistic ransomware, where they would give you a Tor website, anybody that has access to that website could just visit it. A researcher in the US can visit the Tor website that was given to a government in Asia that was victimized by ransomware. And we could easily monitor what's going on there, whether there's no time left or how much the decryption tool is, and also the Bitcoin wallet. But for a targeted ransomware, it's more about that one-on-one communication via email between the threat actor group and the victims. And also one thing, this is also true for opportunistic ransomware, wherein aside from it encrypting your files, or before it encrypts your files, it tries to kill all of the processes that control those files. So that when they encrypt it, there won't be any handle error. So, as you can see here, most of this can be found in the ransomware code, which is very easy for you to determine that something is amiss, especially if it's a new ransomware. If you see something like this, if you're a reverse engineer, if you see something like this, if you see code or API calls that would actually search for different files, chances are it's illustrated ransomware. And most of the targeted ransomware, they're designed not only to encrypt your endpoint but your servers. So usually it has this process of stopping different services on your server. And the tried and true definition of shadow copies. So shadow copies are just backups in your system. So this is usually true for endpoints, wherein especially the shadow copies are enabled, wherein you could go back to a certain date that you have a shadow copy on. So backups is one way of mitigating ransomware. But you will see later, backup alone is not enough when it comes to mitigating ransomware. So when it comes to targets, these are the likely targets. This is what we've been seeing that's being targeted by ransomware. One is organizations with deadline-driven business models. So if you have a deadline where I need to provide information at this date or else my company will suffer or my bottom line will suffer, they're good targets for ransomware. And also organizations or offices or government agencies that provide critical services or infrastructure. So anything that's time sensitive and anything that affects the public when they're down those are right targets for ransomware. Uh, Also, you can see here, most of the targeted ransomware before they attack a company, they would do initial research. Like for example, they could, based on SEC findings or information in public, a company might have a statement out there that says, we just introduced a new technology. This technology will save us $5 million a day while we're in operation. Imagine if that technology stopped or your whole operation is stopped, right? Your company might be losing $5 million a day in revenue because of that stoppage. And for threat actor groups, they would say, you know what, let's just ask $3 million from them. So it'll be easy for them to pay us. And paying ransomware, it's a business decision. It's not a technological decision. It's mostly a business decision. Are you willing to pay X amount of dollars because you're using Y amount of dollars? So it's basically a business decision. And I have a blog about it on our website if you want to read it. It's flashpoint-intel.com. All right, so why the shift? So 4 things, right? Fewer victims to manage, bigger payday, and of course the communication is to speed. It's whoever has access to those emails are the ones that are communicating with the threat actor groups. And of course, there's less likely to have the attack campaign exposed. So what we see in the media is just a small percentage of ransomware attacks that are going on around the world. If I have to guess, probably only like less than 10% of attacks going on from what we see in the media. There's so many things going on that, of course, they're not exposed because number one, the company that has been victimized wouldn't want to say anything about it. But of course, you will see it that if you're familiar with SEC findings, some of them are required to report it for those types of findings. And these are the notable differences between opportunistic and targeted. So we have for the infection vectors, spam, watering hole. So how many of you have heard the term watering hole? So a little bit of tidbit. Watering hole, it was a term coined by our team when I was still working in RSA. And I remember before, when we first wrote our paper on watering hole, there was a vote thinking what we should name that certain infection vector. So somebody said watering hole, a lot of people said that name sucks, we need to think of another name. A week gone by, nobody thought of another name, so we just used watering hole. And it stopped, so it's now being used. For ransomware behavior, targets user services, protection services, as we see. For targeted, the main difference is that it targets server software, as we see in the code earlier in the presentation. And when it comes to communication, mostly core site, targeted, mostly email, and the ransom up to 3,000 and upwards to millions of dollars. So most of the ransomware negotiations I've been involved in, they go up to millions of dollars. The threat actor groups are asking for that amount of money. Now the good thing about email communication is that you can negotiate. You can negotiate with the threat actor groups to get the cost down, or you can negotiate with them to extend the time period for you to pay. Because there's so many things going on when it comes to paying ransomware. There's so many moving pieces aside from this because you have to transfer a large amount of bitcoins from one source to another. So you have to have that certain capability and that know-how, especially when you're dealing with the threat actor groups. So if you're familiar with Goga, after an infection of Goga and after successful payment of ransomware for Goga, they will provide you with this. It's just like them saying, okay, you paid, this is how you secure your network. So this came from threat actors. And one thing you have to remember, is that if you're a business, the main question you have to ask yourself is that if I pay, will my files get decrypted? Because you don't want to lose your money, you pay and then nothing happens, right? And my professional opinion in that is that there's always a risk. There's a possibility that not all your files will be decrypted. There's a possibility that the threat actor group, once they get your money, they'll just run away with it. But one thing I noticed about different threat actor groups is that they also try to increase their reputation. Because at the end of the day, they want to get paid, right? And if they're known, if they have a reputation that says, if you're victimized by this ransomware or controlled by this threat actor group, if you pay them, they will usually provide you with the crypto. Word spreads around. And a C-level executive that has been victimized by ransomware might have a contact with a different C-level executive from another company, and they might communicate with each other, right? They might say, oh yeah, you are victims, also you paid them. So I know you're going through this. If you pay them, you'll get your files back. But of course, there's no guarantee for those, right? Even if they give you the decryption tools, there's no guarantee that its main function is just decryption. It might have other functions aside from decryption, like decrypting your files, but then installing an information stealer, or installing a backdoor or whatever. So there's so many things that might happen. And one thing that you should have on your side is somebody that would help you negotiate and somebody that would help you verify the different encryption tools that the hackers would send you. And one thing I've also seen is that for targeted attacks, since the communication is through email, usually it's an ongoing communication and negotiation, right? So most of the threat actor groups, they're actually willing to help out. If you have questions, you get stuck, they'll give you suggestions. They would say, make sure do not unplug any machines, make sure when you run this, all of your endpoint solutions are turned off. So since they know they're getting paid, when you ask them questions, they have to respond in a very relatively, I would say relatively fast. Sometimes they would respond in mere minutes, sometimes they would respond in hours, but it doesn't, usually within a day, they will respond if you have questions. And these are the known mitigations for ransomware. So, as you can see here, organized backups, dual factor authentication. But one thing here is that most of us, when we're asked, right, if I'm victimized by ransomware, what do I do? Some victims, what they hear is that you have to have backup. But the next question there is that how long can you restore from backup? And how fresh is your backup? Let's say you have backup, right? But then it takes you 15 days or 1 week to restore your backup. That means 1 week of inoperation. And some companies, they would rather pay than lose 1 week of inoperation because that 1 week might cost them more. It might cost them $100 million, and then the ransomware payment is $1 million. So those company board members or C-level executives must make a decision, right? That's why paying ransomware is always a business decision. And that's it for me. Do you guys have any questions about negotiating with ransomware? Difference between opportunistic and targeted? No questions? No violent reactions? So anyway, if you have questions, think of any questions. Oh, my fee? 90% of ransomware pay. I'm just kidding. Oh, I have a. But seriously, guys, if you're victimized by ransomware and you need help on it, feel free to approach me. You see me around walking later, and don't hesitate to send me messages in Twitter or send me an email if you have further questions. And I would like to thank ROOTCON again for giving me the opportunity to speak. It's always good to come back to the Philippines and visit friends and family. Thank you guys. Thank you.